What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to our weekly live stream here at Tuffy Talk. Coming to you with a Tuesday edition, vice a normal Monday edition. I had to bow out yesterday due to a storm that hit me, so we weren't able to get on with you guys. So apologize for not being with you on our typical Monday. But we're coming to you Tuesday night, so we make sure we get our fill for the week. Michael, for anyone that's listening, I am joined tonight by Michael Tracy. So he and I will be guiding the show tonight. But how we doing, sir?
Good. Baseball teams looking good tonight.
Looking good. Last I saw 9-4.
Yep. Still 9-4, seventh inning.
Yep. Very slow moving game.
I know. They had that one inning, fifth inning, fourth inning. They had these like 4 different pitchers in the one inning.
Yeah, they sure did. And if you're watching tonight, you can see my tagline here, looking for a Pac-9 rebound, which Michael said, we're looking good through 6.5. You said bottom 7, top 7. Where are we at?
Still top 7.
Top 7. So yes.
Third.
So 6.5 innings we've completed there down at Wilmington. Looking to rebound, like I said, from a 3-game losing streak. Thankfully, it wasn't 4. We'll take the rain out and get the heck out of Miami like we did on Sunday. But I think we'll spend the first half just talking a little baseball. When you get me on here, I'm a big baseball guy, and I know Michael follows it pretty well too. So we'll have a nice conversation about some things, some of the things that are concerning with us for baseball as we head into the home stretch here. Just 2 more ACC series. We start this week with a Thursday night tilt against our rival UNC. And that series will be a Thursday, Friday, Sunday series with the graduation of UNC happening on Saturday. So there will be no game on Saturday. And then we have no midweek next week. And then we have a final 3-game set against Stanford at home at the Doak Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Just a few more chances to see the Pack here in the regular season before we get postseason started. With that, Michael, I'll go ahead and just turn it over to you and just kind of give me your initial thoughts on the week that was Pac-9 baseball, good, bad, ugly, and give me what you got.
Yeah, well, it really was not much good from last week.
Yeah, I would disagree to a little bit. I mean, there were some silver linings, but I'll give you mine after you give me yours. So what do you got? Give me you have a good?
We just got 2 more runs. That's good.
All right. Well, we might be running these guys, which I wouldn't be mad at.
I like you said, I think the good is that we didn't take a 3rd loss on Sunday. But it was just tough, and it was I don't want to say predictable, but you see it all the time. The big sweep against Clemson and then come out flat the next weekend. And in that midweek against UNCW last week. But that's kind of how it goes sometimes. And Miami is definitely, I think they've won, I don't know.
I think they've won like 4 ACC series in a row or something like that.
Series in a row.
Yeah, they've been really hot.
12 of their last 14 they won or something. So
yeah,
but it's not a bad loss by any means, but you would have liked to get at least one win out of last week, and there was opportunity there.
Yeah, I know this sounds really contrite, I guess, but I really wasn't that impressed with Miami, even though they did win 2 games.
Yeah.
Other than their third baseman, who's a stud. I still don't understand why we pitched to him as many times as we did. At one point in the series, I think it's Cuvette. I think is how you say his name. I think it's like David or Daniel Cuvette. Really, really good ball player. Probably will be first team all ACC and probably a mid-round first round draft pick. So a lot of talent there. But at one point during the series, he had accounted for 8 of 9 runs that they had scored, either via hit, RBI, or run scored itself. I mean, he had hit two home runs. He had several doubles, a single. Like every time he came up, I think we only got him out maybe like once. I think. Officially in the series, I think he did get out in the. No, actually, he singled in his one plate appearance, and then he was at bat when they called the rain delay. So, I think we probably only got him out like one, maybe two times the whole weekend. But with that being said, I kind of want to that UNC Wilmington game last week, I don't know, we just didn't hit. I think that was kind of the theme all of last week. We just didn't hit the ball after we had pretty much, we're hitting beach balls against Clemson.
Right.
We just went into a slump, and we had some guys that I don't necessarily like to call them slumps. I kind of call them funks because slumps just have a kind of it's a 3-game thing, and slump kind of has a negative connotation, and funk just means that they just kind of need to figure some things out. But definitely some concerning things, some concerning habits or traits that I see with this team. One of the things that just drove me crazy on Saturday night was just swinging at first pitches. They just kept swinging at first pitches, and I don't know if that's necessarily was the game plan or the scout on Miami's pitcher, but we were just making it way too easy for their pitcher, and he was just in a really good rhythm. And I just thought, we just didn't do our part because in that Clemson series, I felt like the hitters dictated that series for State, and in this one, it was the pitchers dictating the situation for Miami against us. But so back to UNC Charlotte, UNC Wilmington, excuse me, just didn't get it done there. And then let's talk about Friday. Did you watch Friday's game at all?
A little bit. We had a wedding this weekend, so we were a little bit busy, but
gotcha.
I was able to catch some of it.
Yeah, life happens. For me, it was just missed opportunities on Friday night. We ran ourselves out of a couple of innings with some bad base running, poor situational play, and then on the mound, just not looking at runners. They had an easy steal that scored a run, and then they had a guy that broke for home and stole a run, and that just shouldn't happen. Those are just things that just can't happen when you're trying to compete for an ACC championship.
At one point, I think it was it was 6-2 Miami. So, and
that was the theme too, right? Falling behind early again.
Yeah, which we did today too. We were down 3-0 in the first inning today, but
came
back. But it was like you said, it was 6-2 Miami, where you correct some base running issues and just kind of some mental mistakes, and it could have been that could have been a 4-4 game instead of 6-2, and then
Luke Nixon
got away.
I think it was Friday night. By the way, Luke Nixon is just on a tear right now. That's probably one of the reasons why you see him getting bumped up back to the leadoff spot. And we'll talk about batting orders and rotations, and because there's just some things that I'm still kind of perplexed by, and I don't pretend to know everything, but it's interesting to talk about. And but I think it was the Friday game. Luke just missed a home run that would have given us the lead.
Yeah. Died at the wall.
Yeah. And so again, that's just baseball. Those things are going to happen. And then Saturday we just got blown out again. Just the pitching was not good. Though there was a couple bright spots in that, and we'll talk about that. But I guess give me your thoughts on the pitching rotation, because I kind of want to talk about that. And if you listen to IPS, Ethan Berry, friend of mine, love listening to Ethan talk baseball. Did you listen to their IPS and 5 yesterday about baseball, about the pitching? Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on that? Because it's funny, because Ethan and I have kind of been talking about this stuff offline, and then he finally had to have his soapbox rant, and he was right. He was right on a lot of things, and I just kind of want to get your thoughts on some of the things that we're doing with the pitching lineup.
I mean, so the big thing is moving Nance into the rotation,
right,
instead of Heath Andrews,
correct,
on Saturday,
right.
I mean, I think you don't have to, but it's like Nance has been your best pitcher the last couple of weeks, and it's like
last month and a half, I would say.
Yeah, you kind of want to make sure he pitches.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is a weapon out of the bullpen, but if the game gets away from you early, like it did against Miami, it's like there's no point in burning him now.
Right.
And then he doesn't pitch for a whole week, and you go
That's where we're
0-3,
at.
and it's like, okay,
Yeah,
well,
and
yeah,
and I don't know if you want to go into this UNC series, as important as it is, not having some of these guys getting work. You didn't
Right.
see Schaffner, you didn't see Nance, you didn't. I mean, we really, other than last week, we had a sighting. We can take him off the milk carton now. We saw D-Rock pitch
yeah,
last Tuesday. Yeah, last Tuesday, and I thought he was good. Tonight, I would have maybe had hoped to see him, and I mean, we're up 12-4 at this point. This is a time you bring in D-Rock to see if he's, back to D-Rock of old. Maybe give him, an inning or two.
yeah. I think I feel like they'll bring him in.
I feel like
8th.
you have to, right? So yeah, I just think that you need more, but you have to be careful too with Nance, because I think he's like over 40 innings pitch, and that's a good amount for a freshman, especially now that we're going into postseason play. And I don't know what every year they have a number where they want to see these guys at for innings pitched, and I we're not privy to that, but I mean 40 is a good number for a freshman. But yeah, I still think there's a lot of great value with Heath Andrews. I'm just not sure that I would feel comfortable, because he's shown you that he can pitch really well. He pitched really well against Virginia and Clemson.
Yeah.
But, had moments against Louisville and Duke and Pitt where his ERA is really high. I don't have my stats up in front of me. I was having some internet issues before I came on, but his numbers, his ERA is pretty high, and he doesn't strike out a lot of guys, right? He's not like a Fritton or Marone where he gets a lot of swings and misses. And I thought, like, he didn't pitch horrible on Saturday. They just hit it where we weren't, right? And I think when you don't have the high strikeouts, I know he did have 9 against, I believe it was Clemson.
Yeah, Clemson, 9.
Which was a career high, right? Which is a nice number. Nine's a nice number for strikeouts, but when Dude not Dude, I'm sorry, but when Fritton and Marone have each touched double digits a couple times this year, sometimes those are things that you want, especially when you have a couple guys out and you need that strikeout, right? There's times in a game where you really need a punch out, because even like a double play wouldn't get you out of it. You'd only give up 1 run, and I feel like that's what happens, right? Heath will get into a jam, and then they'll hit a sack fly off of him, or whatever. And I don't know. And when you said, like, Nance is your best pitcher, like, you need to get him more opportunities.
Yeah. I wouldn't be against it. Like I said, it's just like having Nance be able to come in if you need him on Friday or on Saturday. It's like that's a valuable weapon, but you feel like you have enough other guys that you can do that with, so you can make sure you get innings out of Nance in a weekend series.
Yeah, and Schaffner for that, right? And Ethan brought up a really good point about Marone. Like, well, I know the staff is very hesitant to switch things around. That's why I'm not so sure that you'll see Nance come in and be a starter, especially this late at the season. Though on paper it makes complete sense. I'm just not sure that the staff's going to pull that trigger, because it does disrupt things. It's a different mindset to get ready to be a starter, for Nance, and then for Andrews to go back to the bullpen. But when push comes to shove and your season's on the line, you want your best people out there,
right?
And maybe because we didn't really see this. I get it. They're trying to get length out of Andrews, and so if he gives up a couple runs, they're hoping that he settles in, and then kind of was able to maybe put it on cruise control, because you don't want to burn through your pitchers. But to your point that you just mentioned a few minutes earlier, if it gets out of hand, it's too late at that point. Like, next thing you know, you're down 8-1, 9-1, and that's a big hill to climb.
Yeah, and then you've lost the game, and you didn't even give your best pitcher a chance to help you out.
So maybe the postseason, maybe they're cognizant of that, and you get your guys up early and get them ready, and maybe have a quick cook.
Yeah,
and that's really the only
regional
solution. Yeah.
Regional format is always different. So, it's not like you just see a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
Because, Friday play either, if you're a host, you usually play in the later game.
Yeah, you have the choice, but yeah.
Yeah. And then Saturday, like that Saturday game is huge because you avoid the losers bracket.
Or your season's over.
Right.
If you
you
lost
lose on
game
Friday.
1. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you really want your two best pitchers going Friday, Saturday in a regional setting, where in a regular season series, I think it's pretty safe to say your two best starters are Fritton and Marone, and they've been going Friday, Sunday.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think I was talking with Ethan today, and he, I almost said I would want Marone because he's been probably your best pitcher in ACC play, though Fritton has done pretty well. But Marone has just been so good. I was almost saying put Marone in game 1, but Ethan talked me off the ledge and said he would be fine with Fritton, and he's right. Like Fritton has, but again, I think what we're kind of alluding to here is you got to have short hooks. I mean, it's just you got to have guys ready. You can't, let someone maybe necessarily work themselves out of a jam, because that jam could become Mount Everest before you even know it, and then it's done. But so yeah, I would think maybe go Fritton game 1, Marone game 2, Andrews. You can bring him in a game 3, or go somebody else on game 3, and then maybe bring Andrews in a game 4 if you need it, right? Because maybe you have to play from behind. But give yourself options. Put your best guys out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. So but I don't know. That's like, are you gonna see them give Nance a start before the postseason?
Well, there really isn't a time at this point because there's no more midweeks.
Yeah.
So
it's like, you gonna throw him in there his first start against UNC? Right. I think
no, there's no way.
Know.
Yeah,
maybe Stanford, but
maybe Stanford if you've got things locked up.
Right. If you're going to be a top 4 seed, you're not playing for the number 1 seed, if however the math shakes out, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. It's a lot to figure out. And I think with all that being said, in years past, especially in our College World Series years, these things are pretty ironclad. And you see that we're still tinkering with lineups, and it's worked today. Like I said, Luke, other than Sunday being sick as a dog and puking his guts out literally during the rain delay, he really ran past us into the bathroom, and it wasn't great. So for him to come back here on Tuesday and he's able to play and hit a bomb and just missed another one. He just barely missed a grand slam later in the game. So it's great seeing the ball, but just still trying to figure things out with this lineup, because again, even if Marone and Fritton give you great innings and don't give up much, you still got to score runs. I mean, this is a game where you could have a pitcher's delight and he gives up one home run, because like on Marone, he gives up a home run on Sunday that didn't look like it was even getting out. And he did something similar against Clemson. The guy had velo off of 89 miles an hour. Like he just hits a pop up and it gets in the Doak stream. And that's baseball. And, it would suck to lose on something like that because your bats can't get it together. And so again, we played really well against Clemson, and you alluded to it, you come off that high and then you just kind of bottom out a little bit. Got to find a way to get these bats going, and hopefully today is a sign of things to come.
Yeah. Yep. Last week it was a bad sign losing to UNCW. Yeah. Hopefully it's the opposite this week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, so for the lineup for me, I don't, you have some things that go on. McHugh being the magnet that he is for balls being hit, like he got hit again today, which is just unreal. I think he's at again, I gotta look this thing up, but he's got to be at least at 13 or 14 hit by pitches this year. And today he was wearing a hand guard because he took one right off of like kind of, if you're watching here, like right here on Saturday, and then they ended up putting Novi in, which I thought was kind of an interesting move. I thought maybe that would have, I would have thought maybe maybe that would have been a place for Austin Fort. And then you saw on Sunday that you got to start from Jaros because you had to move Havner over to second with Luke being out. But I'm still trying to figure out like who's going to be our designated hitter come the postseason, because that's a revolving door.
I know. I don't know. Like, are they going to zero in on somebody, or? I mean, they haven't so far.
No,
it's crazy.
It's unreal. I mean, your candidates are kind of Austin Fort, who's had some, he had a nice series against Clemson, and then he's back to the bench. And then you had Jaros, who came off as a pinch hitter on Saturday, and he had probably, I don't even know what it was, probably it felt like a 15 pitch at bat, just kept fouling stuff off and then finds a way to get a hit. And so these are guys that are more than capable. I just feel like they need opportunity and need more reps. You saw Novi get a start today at DH. He had a couple good plate appearances over the weekend, filling in for McHugh. But it's and you see Lamphere there. I think Lamphere was a DH on Sunday, and I'm just like, okay, like who is it going to be? Someone needs to. And look, I guess where I'm going with this is guys have had opportunity, but they just haven't really necessarily seized it for long periods of time, or when they like Jaros against the Duke series, he has a couple good games and then he's back to the bench, and I'm like, okay, like what did he do to show you that he wasn't continuing to be capable of that role?
Right.
Yeah.
And like Austin Fort, like you said, after that Clemson series, I think he was 4 for 8 in that Clemson series, and then
Nothing. Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, this coaching staff has won a lot more games than I have, so it's hard to second guess them. But it just, again, eye test, right? It just, I don't have all the analytics that these guys do, and all the stuff that they see on a day-to-day basis when these guys in the cage taking BP or taking ground balls or whatever. But it just feels like if you got a hot hand, like keep riding that hand until like he doesn't have it anymore, and it just doesn't feel like they give like that opportunity. Which then in turn worries me for the future, right? Like, are these guys happy with their roles? And are we going to have a 25 new players on the roster next year because guys are transferring, and I understand that's part of the game, but it's just like, okay, I would just love to see some stability instead of just a few core guys staying from year in to year out.
Yeah.
Just kind of jump in the chat here a little bit and see what's going on. I think that was probably our fearless leader, Leighton, with Shane Van Dam. Yes, we had an SVD sighting today. I had heard the other day that this was a possibility, and to see it come to fruition is just really great for anyone that doesn't know. He's coming off a UCL or Tommy John surgery. He had this I think it was about April of last year, I want to say. So good to see him get back out on the bump. Little bit of a rocky first inning. Just maybe a little bad luck, play there where maybe Havner should have made the play. But again, it's baseball. But then for him to settle in and get a 1-2-3 in the second inning, that was a good second inning, good sign. And then just went out and this was going to be a bullpen day, and with Shane coming off that surgery, he's going to be very limited on his pitch count. They won't deviate from that. And I think maybe some of the hope is he might be available for some postseason play. So you don't want to burn, because he's going to be like on a strict, like he gets to, it's either going to be pitches or innings or some variation thereof. When he gets to that number, he's going to be done. There's going to be no like, okay, like we're going to go another 5 innings with him. Like it's going to be a very strict number, whatever that number ends up being. And so you don't want to go through, if he's capable of throwing 6 innings today, you don't want him to go 6 innings. Now, That
Not
wasn't
off
going to be a
that
thing
injury.
anyway. Yeah. It wasn't going to be a thing anyway. But the point being is, you want to be, cautious and judicious in where you get those innings, and you want to make sure that those innings count, and that this was just a good way for him to get out on the mound, get some live action, see where he's at. And I'm sure he's thrown live BP between getting ready, but that's a little different than playing in real game action. But so excited to see him, and I texted his mom earlier, and she couldn't be more happy to see him out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see him back out there.
Yeah, I think he can be a real sorry, I had a funny picture show up on my phone from the Pac-9 dads. But they Shane's someone that could be very valuable come postseasons, kind of the thought that I was trying to get to, that I got sidetracked. Right. So I'm excited to see that. That's another arm where, if you get into a jam, you can lean on him for an inning, or, a situational, a key situation in a game that, you might need an out or two.
Yeah.
Did you, I'm assuming you're listening to the game today and not watching it, or what did you go with? How was your means of watching the game?
I had the live stat.
Okay, you were doing live stat.
Broadcast.
Okay. Yeah, I was listening to Andrew, and he had where I was going with this was Preacher Man, and someone that thanks for telling the UNC writer what you said. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But they had Francis Combs on the radio broadcast today with Andrew Sanders, and it was awesome listening to him. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Combs. I've seen him all over the place, and if you've been to any kind of NC State event game, whether it be women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, football, he's always there. And for those that don't know who he is, that's Chris Combs' dad, who, when they do the strikeout for ALS, that's the game that they always honor him, number 26, and you'll see his number retired out in the right field wall on Doak, and then you'll always see his jersey hanging up in the dugout. And so I had the opportunity to finally just kind of go up and introduce myself down in Miami this past weekend, and just spent a couple minutes just talking with him. And I was there with him and Chris Corciani, and it was just a nice couple minute conversation. But what I didn't know, other than his legacy with Chris, being his dad, that this man is just like the greatest storyteller I've ever heard. I mean, he's, he was like best friends with Catfish Hunter, and, the Hall of Famer who played with the A's and the Yankees. And he's telling stories that he threw batting practice at the World Series against, to Reggie Jackson, Mr. October himself.
That's crazy.
Like, maybe he was the guy that got Reggie going for all those home runs in that game in the World Series back in the day. But yeah, in him, like, talking about he had to hitchhike to get to games. Like it was a football game that he was trying to get to in Lansing, Michigan, against Michigan State. And he does all the spotting for the radio, and he hadn't missed a game like in 40, 50. Like, the man is just a wealth. And if you just want some good storytelling, I would just say, hey, go back and listen to the broadcast on demand at some point, and just kind of listen to the stories. He and Andrew had a great dialogue. I would have loved to just finish listening to his stories, but he had a ton of stories about Catfish Hunter, who, sadly died of ALS. So, this game just means a lot for both teams. Yeah. And just the things that he had to say, just telling stories about NC State football. Yeah, he and his brother, I don't remember his brother's name, so I apologize, but they were players together, and they played for both football and baseball. And yeah, just really cool dude. Like, if I'd have known these things, before I met him, I would have just probably chewed his ear off for an hour, and he probably would have gotten tired of me. But just a really fascinating guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you knew all of that about him, but
no, not at all. I mean, obviously the Chris Combs part of it is a great thing that we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, and he actually he's a like certified umpire and does, he's done high school games and so on and so forth. But he also umpires the Pac-9 scrimmages during the fall and spring. So he gets out there, and he and Elliot are pretty good friends, and it's I just enjoyed listening to the broadcast. And Andrew always does a nice job, because most of the time he's doing his broadcast solo. And for him to have Mr. Combs up there and talking and telling stories in between pitches and plays, it was a fun broadcast, to say the least. So just wanted to kind of talk about that for a minute. And just kind of scrolling down here. He's Reacher Man's like he's still on. That the story about getting left, and he had to catch a ride with a cop. That was a pretty funny story. And then he was just, I mean, I didn't even know Catfish Hunter was missing a toe because his brother shot it off. Like stuff I never even knew about, and some baseball lore, and just fascinating stories. But so I will talk about this. Telling the UNC writer, I had seen what he had wrote a couple of weeks ago, and it was I guess his name is Grant Hughes, and I couldn't remember the guy's name because I wanted to go like hit him up, but I couldn't remember it. And then our friends over at Locked On Wolfpack, they posted it, and he'd be like, "Oh, it'd be a real shame if we kind of told him." And this is a guy that I don't know how much of I feel like he's basically the Corey Smith equivalent at 247. Is that a fair from what you know of him, Michael? I think that's kind of what he is, because I know he does Inside Carolina crap.
Yeah. I mean, they have Inside Carolina. They usually have, I think they've got a couple more people than NC State does. But he worked for 24/7 for the UNC site. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he was just talking, trying to, I guess we'll leave it at stir the pot, because it's we're a kid friendly show. But he was more or less alluding to, Will Wade with all this hype, but his recruiting class was going to be pretty weak. And I think at that point we might have had 4 or 5 guys committed, like really committed and signed. And so for him to kind of go out there and say what he said, it was what's the word? It was cheap. It was a cheap shot that the class hasn't even fully developed yet.
He knew what he was doing, but
and then not to have the integrity to stick with it and then delete it. Like, come on, bro.
And then say he was standing by it. But
then he was standing by it.
But you deleted it.
Correct. Yeah, and that's basically what I alluded to. And I'm like you and your so-called journalist school over at UNC, and then you don't even stand by your reporting. And again, either be a Twitter troll or be a journalist. Like, you can't be both, right? Because it just, get yourself a burner like everyone else does these days.
Yeah, really.
If you're going to be a journalist, be a journalist.
Yeah, no, it's been funny just to watch every time there's a commit, just all the responses. Again, they keep bringing it back up.
Yeah, I'm surprised, honestly, that he hasn't blocked half of NC State Wolfpack Nation, because you guys are doing a great job. You're blowing his nonsense up, and that's pretty funny. So I guess we can go over I don't know what else. Real quick, kind of want to touch on women's and men's tennis. They both advanced to the Sweet 16 this past weekend. I think both of them were hosting, so it was a very busy weekend at the tennis center. Both teams won pretty easily, if I remember correctly. I don't think they were either. I don't think they were pushed to the full 4-3 type thing. I think both won like 4-2, 4-1 in both of their matches. So that was nice to see. I don't know where they're headed to next. I hadn't gotten that far this week. I haven't. Yeah, I got home at 4:00 in the morning yesterday morning from Miami. So I flew. We had a late flight from Miami to Norfolk, Virginia, and I dropped my son off, and then I drove right back home. So I rolled in at 4:00 in the morning, and then there you go. Coastal beats Clemson. They continue to slide. I think We took 3 from them. Florida State took 2, and then they just lost this one. So math is really hard, but they've lost a lot of games in a row, which is not good for State, by the way, because of that hurts our RPI a little bit.
Yeah, we need them to keep winning.
Yeah, we do. We do need them to keep winning, and we need teams like Cal to win and Virginia Tech to win. But what do you got there, Michael?
Women's tennis Sweet 16 versus UNC on Friday.
At UNC or State?
I believe it's
probably UNC, or is it neutral?
Yeah, probably UNC.
Yeah. Friday, you say? Do we have a time?
Friday, May 9th at 5 p.m.
Of course, it's during baseball.
Tuning Tennis Center? I don't know. Is that UNC's?
Yeah, it's UNC. That's not ours. Yeah. Okay, so that's a rematch from the national championship a few years ago. And then what about the men?
Let's see. Where did they go? Men's tennis. Saturday, May 10th at 1 p.m. in New York. But I have no idea who the opponent is.
Interesting.
I don't know whose logo that is.
Oh,
Queens?
Can you pull it up? Let me see. Can you put it to the screen and maybe I can? That's Columbia.
Oh, Columbia.
Yeah, it's Columbia.
Yeah, so they'll be in New York on Saturday.
I know way too much about stupid things. Yeah,
I'm usually pretty good with logos, but
yeah, they're kind of one of those schools, though, right? Yeah. Ivy League. No, they don't really they don't really have a lot of sports legacy, I'm sure. But all right, so the men are up in New York, and then the Big Apple City, and then if anyone's seen I can't remember what movie that was from. I think She's Out of Your League. You're like, the Big Apple City.
The Big Apple City.
And then the women will be over at UNC, which is where the men will be for baseball. So, okay. Well, hopefully they can get a couple of wins there and then head over to the. I don't know. Is that another 2 matches? I assume if you win the first one, I'm assuming it's a full weekend at those locations. Much, because then you would probably go to the Final Four.
Yeah,
I would assume. I would assume that would be the way it works out. Okay, so we'll see if they can both advance to the Elite 8 and then the Final Four, which I'm assuming that the championships are still down in Florida. I think that's one of those permanent locations, much like some of the other sports have.
Right.
All right. You want to talk a little basketball?
Yeah.
As I know our fearless leader who couldn't be here because apparently Lincoln Park is more important, but he did leave a little teaser on our clip art about Mr. PJ Haggerty.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That is the big one, right? That is the big fish that's remaining in the pond, if you will, for NC State to land. And I think if you get him, that'll pretty much round out. Because where are we at now? 9, 10?
I think we have 10 official guys signed. So you have 3 more spots.
Yeah, technically you can get up to 13. There are no more walk-ons from what I understand, correct? It's all scholarship.
Yeah, technically you can go up to 15 now, but I think we'll go 13 and then I think we'll still have I think you can still have walk-ons.
You can have walk-ons, okay. Yeah. I just know everything's been changing and I can't.
I know. You don't have to have walk-ons, but
yeah. So sure PJ Haggerty would definitely change old Grant's thoughts about where we end up. And I did from everything that you're reading out there, if you believe what you read and the crystal balls that are out there and people like Memphis podcast losing their mind about losing Haggerty potentially to NC State. I think that's a real possibility.
Yeah, and it seems like he's still getting NBA draft feedback, and
right.
I think it said he's going to go to the combine, which is next week. So you probably won't officially hear anything.
I think the deadline is like the 20th, 24th, something like that, to pull out of the NBA process.
Well, I was looking that up. I think the official deadline is June 5th, but I assume
June
after he
5th.
goes to the combine next week, he'll get enough feedback to where
Probably,
he
yeah.
kind of make a decision.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, but I mean, it's a little bit scary because that's still it's a little bit of time. Like, I really don't expect any announcement either way. And like, there's other teams that could still get involved, but
not only that, but if you hold out for him, and then he decides to stay in the draft, then there's potential guys that you've missed on.
Yeah.
And so it's a game of cat and mouse, and how much are you willing to play with that fire and not get burned.
All right. But if he ends up at NC State,
I think the juice is worth the squeeze, right? I think you have to let it play out.
Right. Yeah. Especially with the roster, you built a pretty decent roster so far, and that would just be a huge cherry on top.
A little cherry on top.
And he's one of the best players in the portal this year.
So
I think much top 3.
Yeah, easily. Easy. You can definitively say top 5 without hesitation, and then you can put him in the argument for top 3. There's no doubt about that. But with that being said, he kind of played point guard at Memphis, and you kind of brought a guy in Trey Holloman to be that guy.
I actually think he played more
shooting.
Your two guard, but it was reported he wants to play more point guard because that's probably where his NBA future is, just because he's not the biggest. I think he's only 6'3", so in the NBA that you're looking more as a point guard at that size.
Yeah.
But it also said he wanted $4 million, which we're not going to pay him that. So who knows?
No. Yeah. So I guess the big question is, can they play nicely together? Right.
Right. Yeah.
And that's really the big if, and that you want to make sure that it's a good fit, not only talent wise, which that's a no brainer, check in the box, but what's the word? There's a good teammate. Chemistry. Yeah. Good chemistry teammate. Will that check be put in the box? And I think, honestly, that's probably the most important, because if he and Holloman weren't to get together, that's not only one player not playing well, that's 2 players not playing well. And that's probably the last thing you want when you're looking at bringing someone in. It's not always about the talent. It's about how they fit in schematically, not only X's and O's, but as a good teammate.
Yeah. And that's going to be tough next year, Haggerty or not, just because you're pretty much replacing the whole roster. I think you have Paul McNeil coming back, and he's the only one.
You're talking about after this year, or this year? You mean?
No, this year.
This year. Yeah,
in year one. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some rumor that maybe Trey Parker comes back. We'll see if how that plays out. If it does play out. But yeah, that's a wait and see as well. But yeah, and then I guess the other one that we brought in is the center. Was it the one we thought initially? But this guy, how do you say his last name? Because I'm gonna butcher it.
I don't know. I think it's Paul Mbaya.
Mbaya. Yeah, I was just gonna call him Paul, but we already have a Paul, so I can't really just call him Paul.
I haven't heard it said, but yes, I think it's Mbaya.
Yeah, I've just seen it in articles, and so I'm like, I'm not really good with African names, so I don't want to butcher the dude's name. But I'm gonna pull this up from a guy that I know who does some stuff with different athletes, and it's a really good. This is just a comparison on him. This is from a friend of mine. His name's Dalton. He does a lot of camps for basketball. Of course, now I should have just screenshotted this. Here it is. From an NBA scout about our new center at NC State. Just might be in the NBA sooner than later. He's 6'11", center, is one of the most underrated international NBA prospects eligible for the 2025 draft, which he's not going to go to the draft, obviously. But Mbaya is an absolute monster playing for a French club, which is it's a under 21 squad this season. His stats were 15.5 points per game, 11.3 rebounds per game, 3.2 blocks, 1.2 steals. And it says per reports, he was, he'd set up visits with NC State, Kansas, and Kansas State, and then was taking a visit to Oregon. And then lastly, it says he's an absolute monster with ridiculous physical tools. He has a 7'4" wingspan and an enormous catch radius around the basket. He moves well on defense and has shown the ability to switch onto guards and more than hold his own, as well as displaying some intriguing touch and footwork around the basket as a post-up threat. And so he's going to be like an instant rim protector. So, yeah.
Right. The athleticism with him is kind of the selling point there, why he's on the NBA draft profile. I mean, at that size with that wingspan and, like you just mentioned, his footwork like that, it's just, there's a lot of upside there. So it could be a really, really good pickup there.
I really hate Lane right now. I really hate Lane. I'm trying to focus on the show, you jerk. Don't you have a concert to be at? No. Caps in 4. I'm really excited about this one, and I think it just kind of goes to show the level of what this staff is doing to find guys, right? Kind of like leaving no stone unturned, just reaching into their bag of tricks and pulling guys literally out of a hat.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that's it. It's big. I think it's a big underrated pickup. I think for the value you got him at.
Yes, that's the big thing, right? That goes back to what we were. I think it was Macon talking last week. Were you on last week with us or no? Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the money ball aspect of that, right? Just getting the most value while spending the least amount possible.
Right. And that allows you to go after the big.
Right. Like a PJ Haggerty.
Like a PJ Haggerty. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, that's the key, right? You can get some low value, high reward, or low value as far as dollars, but very successful players, and then spend that money. And then at that point allows you to maybe overspend for a PJ Haggerty. Maybe you weren't planning on spending 2.75 million for a guy, but because you've gone out and spent your other money wisely, that it leaves a little bit left in the piggy bank that you can go get your guy.
Right. Yeah. That's the most important thing, because I don't think we're ever going to have the most money to go out and buy whoever we want. But if you do it right and you find good value, there's a lot of opportunity there.
When you say good value, it makes me just think, and though I think it's great value, but the Walmart brand, if you ever bought like Walmart canned vegetables, I think it's great value. And I don't want to be compared to that, but there is something to be said that you want to go get the most with the least amount of money, because that's going to be the name of the game until hopefully these other, these NILs and these things maybe catch up, maybe because you've seen an uptick in things, right? You've seen an uptick in season tickets with men's basketball. I think you've probably seen an uptick in NIL, people giving. And sometimes it just takes a turnover at the coaching ranks because people didn't believe in what someone was doing, right, wrong, or indifferent. And look, that's people's money. They can spend it however they feel that it's going to be best utilized. And maybe now with weight on staff that they're going to be maybe a little bit more giving because they're kind of seeing the bigger picture with the ability of what we're able to bring in at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of the name of the game these days.
Right. I know football kind of brought in a couple of guys in the last week. I don't have their names up. Today was kind of busy, so I wasn't able to fully prepare, and I apologize for that in advance, but I know we got a defensive end.
Yep. from Texas Tech.
Yeah. We got a cornerback from Northern Texas.
North Texas.
North Texas, not Northern Texas.
And the cornerback, I think that's the bigger pickup. I think Texas Tech guy, the edge, he'll just be more of a depth piece. He didn't play at all last year because of injury, so I don't really expect much from him besides, just another extra body there at the edge. But
we need everybody.
But the cornerback from North Texas was first team all AAC last year.
Yeah.
As a redshirt freshman, so he's still a young guy, and I think cornerback he could definitely slide in and start. Right now, I think just based on last year, I think really Devin Morsell, you could pencil him in as a starter, but I think the other corner is kind of up for grabs still.
Yeah, you had that locked in, and then they transferred to South Carolina with Brandon Cisse. Yeah, so they had to go back to the drawing board on that one, and look, that's just the way football is in 2025, and you're gonna have to always be scouring out there to find folks, and guys will come into the portal, especially after the spring, and you got to be ready to pounce. And I think NC State wasn't happy necessarily with the guys that they had, and that they found an opportunity to upgrade. And I think this guy will definitely compete potentially for a starting job, because like you said, there's only really one that's probably locked in. And if nothing else, you hope that you get, at least a special teams guy out of the situation, a guy that can still contribute, but you're hoping when a guy is an all AAC player, that he's going to be able to come in and plug in and be a starter come day one.
Right. Yeah. Because new defense, I mean, that's going to be that's the big question mark. I think, I think the offense, while it wasn't great last year, it was still better than the defense. And you're bringing a lot of guys back. I know you're changing coordinators, but Roper was a QB coach, so it's kind of there's some continuity there.
Yeah, he's not going to deviate too much. He's gonna play to Bailey's strengths, and probably install a couple of things differently, but you're going to probably see a lot of the same base stuff that you saw. Maybe he's more aggressive. Like some of those things, you're just going to have to, wait and see, what his philosophy is going to be. Is he going to be run oriented, pass oriented? He's going to be 50-50. Obviously game situation will dictate those types of things as well. But, what will the game plans look like from week in and week out?
Yeah. So defense is a big question mark. New coordinator, new similar scheme, but a little bit different. You're going to have different, edge type players.
Yep.
So I think adding anybody you can add on defense, at this point can only really be a good thing.
Yeah, I you're not going to see the 3-3-5, but you'll definitely see some hybrids, 4-3, 3-4s type things. Again, playing to hit what he's got in the stable,
right?
Because he probably doesn't have the guys that maybe all the guys that he wants to run his defense. So you'd have to see maybe next year, as some of those guys are able to be brought in. But it's going to be one of those. I have a feeling this season is going to be. We're going to have to score in the 30s to kind of feel comfortable about where we're going to be for winning games. And I don't necessarily like that recipe for success, but this offense has enough firepower to do those types of things. And we'll have the next couple of months to start talking about those things and breaking those things down as we, get into the fall camp here in about 3 months. But
a lot of summer.
Yeah. We still got baseball going. Hopefully we're talking baseball well into June, and talking about Omaha. I know, like we said earlier, we got 2 more series. I kind of want to maybe spend a few minutes about this Carolina series as we get ready to wrap up. Because this is arguably the most important series of the season for multiple reasons. One, it's your rival, so you want to go in and make a statement on that, and you're playing over in Carolina, and you didn't get things done. You didn't get things done in Miami, and you went into the weekend with a lead in the ACC conference play, and you got taken over by Florida State. Now, the one interesting thing is that, most of the time you'll play a 30-game slate, but with that rain out cancellation, the best we can do is get to 29 games.
Yeah.
And so we were already looking at a win percentage, how that was going to determine the winner of the ACC regular season championship. But now, losing a game off the schedule just makes the rest of those games that much more tough. And I kind of was, doing some numbers last week, and I kind of mentioned it. I thought 21 games. All right, so it looks like that's the ball game. Well,
Yeah.
State probably wins 14-4.
14-4. Yeah.
That's what we like to hear. That's a good comeback after losing to these guys last week in Raleigh, and then losing those 2 games in Miami. So that's a big number. 14. Hopefully those bats stay hot for the next couple of days. You'll have tomorrow off, like I said, and the series starts on Thursday against UNC over at UNC. But what I was saying before that is I thought 21 game. I had thought we had to get to 21 wins to really feel comfortable about winning the ACC regular championship, and that would basically meaning you would have to win all the games left.
Win out. Yeah.
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 16. I don't know. I mean, yes, that's possible. Yes, this team has the ability. They showed it against Clemson that they can go sweep, a top 5 team in the country. So I don't think it's impossible. But the thing to think about too is these games are just as important for Carolina and their seeding, because they're trying to get to number 1 as well, because they have a path to the top seed as well. I believe this is Carolina's last series, ACC series of the season, because I think they have or maybe they had a non-conference last weekend. I would need to look the score back or go back, but I think no, I think they have one more left.
No, I think they play Florida State.
Yeah,
last weekend. I think they were they had an off weekend
completely off weekend, maybe because of exams.
So.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So that their next 2 series, you're right, they do play Florida State. Because Clemson played Florida State and they still got Duke and Pitt these last 2 weekends. That's right. I knew they were playing each other in some form or fashion. But they thank you, Preacher Man. To get to 21, we have to sweep both series. I think a sweep against Stanford is very, very doable, though they've been playing a little bit better of late, but that's still a series that you can take 3 at home, senior weekend. Like everything just means you better come out and play your best ball.
Yeah. So the extra game or the one less game, I mean, that could help us or it could hurt us.
Absolutely.
Right? Mm-hmm. We don't know yet. I mean, every team. So Florida State's technically in first place at 14-7 because of percentage, but we're in second place at 15-8. But then right behind us, North Carolina and Georgia Tech are both 15-9. So we're ahead of them. So that's kind of like
because we have that
right
one
now.
Game.
It's because right now it's going in our favor, but it could easily go the other way where we could finish. If we finish 18-11, but say UNC finishes 19-11, they would be ahead of us because of that one extra game.
Right. So that's why all these head-to-heads mean something, right? And so ideally what we want to do is go in, sweep Carolina, and then Carolina go sweep Florida State the next week. That would be awesome case scenario. And then, of course, us handle business against Stanford.
Yeah.
So I still think – so now we have 6 games left. We're at 15 wins.
You get to 20. What's
that?
You get to 20 wins. Now I think it's 20 instead of 21 because that means you're winning – you're sweeping one and you're winning the other series. So.
Correct. Yeah. And someone told me, and I haven't had a chance to verify this, but someone told me Avon's never won 20 in a season, which I don't know if it's 100% true. I would have to go back and look that up. But if that's the case, then that would be, pretty amazing in and of itself, an achievement for a coach that's been there 29 years. Yeah, but give me your thoughts on this Carolina series.
It looks like he's never won 20. He's won 19. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Never 20.
So that was a true statement. Then not that I didn't believe the guy because he knows his stuff, but but kind of I don't know. Give me give me your thoughts on this weekend real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. I kind of want to see I just want to see real quick common opponents to see kind of how they've done against those.
I haven't really watched UNZ at all.
Yeah, I watched the Virginia Tech series a little bit. Basically because that got a little interesting and a little hot under the collar.
Yeah. That was, Obviously, Luke Stevenson, I know that name. I mean, he's killing it. They've got a solid trio of starters. So, which DeCaro pitched tonight versus Campbell. So I would assume they're saving him for Sunday against us.
That would make sense. Yeah.
So
real quick,
I don't know. I mean, I really don't expect us to sweep it.
I don't either.
The road.
Yeah, I don't either.
That would be great, but of course,
I would take it
to sweep Clemson. So.
Right. So right now, common opponents they swept ECU. They beat A&T, which we did. They beat Coastal 5-4 and 11, which we lost to.
Yeah.
They lost 2 of 3 to Stanford, but that was early in the season.
That was like first.
It was the first ACC series of the season. They beat Wilmington. They lost 2 of 3 to Louisville, which we took 2 of 3 from.
Yeah.
We didn't play Boston College. They took 2 or 3 from Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they won 2 or 3 against Duke, which we lost 2 or 3 against Duke.
Yeah.
And we didn't play Wake Forest. And then they won 2 or 3 against Tech, which was the same thing we did. And then they took 2 or 3 from Pitt, which is the same we did.
Mm-hmm.
So fairly even.
Yeah. I don't think it'll be a sweep either way. I think.
I don't either. I don't either. I think one team wins 2 and one loses 1, or one wins 1. Excuse me. I just hope we're on the better end of that.
Yeah.
Just kind of wanted to pull up some stats real quick just to see if anything kind of just jumps off at the page as far as them. I'm just kind of curious as like their team ERA and why is it not coming up? Hold on 1 second. Sports, baseball.
It's tight at the top of the standings, though. I mean, Florida State 14-7, State 15-8, UNC and Georgia Tech 15-9, Miami 14-9, Clemson and Duke 14-10.
Yeah,
and then Louisville 13-11. They're a little farther out, but
real quick.
Everybody from Duke up. I mean, still has
still
a chance
live
to win the league.
Yeah, mathematically, a lot. Real quick, I'm just looking here on the baseball front page, and it's never a good weekend if the team you played gets both honors for the week. Miami had the pitcher and the batter of the week, so you didn't have a good weekend if they're the top players for the league. Stats real quick. Let me just see. Because I know our team ERA took a hit over the weekend. Okay, this page is loading slow, so I'm just gonna say the heck with it. We'll just wrap on this. So yeah, 2 for 3 sweep would be phenomenal. But that just means if we sweep Carolina, we go lose 2 or 3 against Stanford, because that just feels like such an NC State thing to do. But no, I'm cautiously optimistic that we can go over to Carolina and here we go, batting. I mean, team average is higher for us just by a couple points. Let's see, home runs, they're just slightly ahead of us by 1. Now that's not taking into consideration today's stats, because I know we hit at least 1 tonight. Let's see, really, no one really jumps out offensively at the top other than Hunter Stokely and Alex Madeira. So those are just a couple names that we need to kind of keep an eye on. But pitching, they have the best ERA in the league at 3.48. And they've given up 48 home runs, and we've given up 51. So I think it's going to be a pretty good matchup. In comparison, our ERA is 4.92, so about a run and a half more. our fielding. They're 5th in the league, and we're 7th in the league. We've made 40 errors, and they've made 40 errors. But they just have a little bit more because a little bit more action. So I feel like it's going to be a pretty even matchup. It's just going to come down to who makes pitches win and who doesn't beat themselves. I don't think State had any errors tonight. I could be wrong, but when I was listening, I don't remember there being any errors. Just real quick, my big thing now at this point in time in the season is the weather. Can we get these games in? So let me just see Chapel Hill for this weekend. And the weather is.
What's it looking like? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't even checked.
And it's slowly, everything is slow tonight for me. All right, Thursday. The high of 81, low of 61, 25% chance of rain. Friday, 76 and 53, 40% chance. And then there's Sunday, it's clear, 74 as a high of no rain. So I like our chances of getting the games in. I don't know if we get a rain, if they're even going to be willing to consider playing on Saturday.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, if there is rain Thursday or Friday, you at least have the open day on Saturday.
But Saturday is their graduation day. That's why there's not a game. And so I don't know if that's an automatic no.
Like graduation's all day. Like you could play.
Oh, I don't disagree.
Saturday night.
I don't disagree. But I guess it kind of depends on what they're trying to do. But it should be a fun series over in Carolina. It would be my first time going to their stadium. Look, I hate to give credit where credit's due, but it looks like a really nice stadium. It looks, I was impressed with Miami this past weekend. I liked their stadium. Not a lot of bleacher seats, but they had a real concourse below, especially like when it rains. Like if that weather had happened in Raleigh, I might not be doing this podcast and I might be dead. And I'm not even kidding. Like the lightning was insane. And it was really rough. I mean, it was raining sideways and we were still getting wet underneath like the concrete bleachers. But a nice environment down in Miami. Bad. Yeah, it was really bad. But let's go get a win. We'll get a couple of wins this weekend. Hell, let's go get a sweep. I'd love to be able to have my broom back in the background here next week. So, and we'll see, if anything changes with pitching. I saw a couple guys pitch tonight, and so it'll be interesting to see come Thursday what that looks like. But so what are you going with? State winning 2-3? 2 games.
I'll go State 2 out of 3. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I have us winning 2 of 3. I would love to say 3 of 3 just because I hate Carolina that much, but I also have to be a realist. So I will take the 2 of 3. But if we get 3 of 3, you will not see this guy complain one bit. So yeah, next week we should be back to our normal Monday evening. Hopefully talking about some Pac-9 wins, and then we're just about done with baseball regular season. It's hard to believe that. There's only 3 games left at the Doak for this season. So make sure you guys go out and, especially that last weekend, get some tickets and sell it out one more time. I would love to see another series like we had against Clemson. All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition. Make sure you're following us on all of our social media channels. Make sure you got your YouTube up and you got the bell icon clicked for all the notifications. And you're following us on X and Instagram and I don't know. I think we have TikTok. I don't know what we're doing on those things these days. I'm too old for that stuff. But as always, Wolfpack Nation, thanks again for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And if you guys are listening to this on different kind of podcast platforms, just go out and give us a nice rating. And that way we can encourage other people in the community to come listen to some good NC State content. And as always, Wolfpack Nation, we appreciate you and go Pack.